Notorious crime widow Judy Moran could die in prison after being found guilty of murdering her son-in-law.
You know what I mean when I say the godfather, right? Well, get ready to hear about the godmother of cocaine. She is Griselda Blanco.
Griselda Blanco, popularly known as the cocaine godmother and the Black Widow, stood as a formidable Colombian drug lord, ruling over a male-dominated and merciless realm of narcotics and brutality. In a period where she held prominence, Blanco emerged as the preeminent cocaine importer, pioneering the trade between Colombia and the United States.
She was the largest cocaine importer at the time.
Her legacy was marred by numerous murders and assassinations that she orchestrated. Eventually, Blanco faced arrest and extradition to the United States, where she served an extended prison term before deportation back to Colombia, where she met her demise. How did Griselda Blanco become the cocaine godmother? Born in 1943 in Cartagena, Colombia, Blanco grew up in abject poverty, violence, and exposure to criminality from an early age. She navigated a tumultuous path, engaging in activities ranging from pickpocketing and prostitution to kidnapping. Tragically, at the tender age of 11, she witnessed the murder of her mother by her stepfather. This terrifying experience molded Blanco's character into one of ruthlessness and ambition, equipping her with the skills needed to reign over the landscape of the drug trade.
Most Americans know of Pablo Escobar.
Right.
Well, she was there before Pablo Escobar on a much larger scale. Pablo Escobar was stealing cars when she was already trafficking 3,400 pounds of cocaine in the 70s and 80s.
She later claimed that she was born a criminal and that she had no choice but to survive.
She basically invented bringing from South America and into the United States.
In 1959, when she was 16 years old, Griselda Blanco married her first husband, Carlos Trujillo. Carlos was a seasoned smuggler who taught her how to forge passports and visas. She had 3 sons with him, Dixon, Uber, and Osvaldo, who later became her crime partners. She also had a 4th son, Michael, who came into the world through her relationship with another man, Dario Sepulveda. Griselda meticulously nurtured her sons, instilling loyalty and obedience and expanding her criminal network. She later claimed that she loved her sons and wanted to give them a better life. In 1964, she illegally immigrated to the United States with false passports and settled in Queens, New York with her 3 children and husband. There, she established a sizable cocaine enterprise. However, her criminal activities caught up with her in April 1975, as she was indicted on federal drug conspiracy charges alongside 30 of her subordinates. Evading arrest, she fled to Colombia, but later returned to the United States, taking residence in Miami in the late 1970s. Her return coincided with the onset of public violent conflicts marked by a surge in crime and hundreds of murders that swept the city of Miami during the 1980s. Her relocation to the United States in the 1970s saw the establishment of a cocaine empire spanning from New York, Miami, and Los Angeles. She clashed with the Medellin cartel led by Pablo Escobar and orchestrated the importation of tons of cocaine from Colombia. She was known for her ruthless reputation, overseeing numerous murders and assassinations. Her brutality and extravagant lifestyle became infamous along with innovative smuggling methods such as concealing cocaine in lingerie, dolls, and even human corpses.
They were creating garments. These garments would allow for the drugs to be more smooth around the body. It would just look like a woman's natural figure.
Blanco was not only a formidable drug lord, but also a master manipulator, employing young boys and girls as hitmen and compensating them with drugs and money. Her cocaine trade brought in millions, affording her a life of luxury. She loudly boasted that she was the unrivaled queen of the cocaine world and that she had no fear or remorse, solidifying her reputation. After a decade of evading authorities, Griselda's reign of impunity ended in 1985. She was indicted on federal drug conspiracy charges and faced a possible death penalty. She also faced charges of ordering the murders of 3 of her former husbands, Carlos Trujillo, Alberto Bravo, and Dario Sepulveda. Griselda's downfall was caused by her greed and paranoia, losing all her allies and enemies. She also lost her sons, who were either killed, arrested, or turned against her. She later claimed that she was innocent and that she was a victim of the media and the police. During the trial in 1987, Griselda pleaded guilty to 3 counts of second-degree murder, resulting in a 20-year sentence to be served concurrently, effectively totaling 60 years. She was accused of bribing and seducing prison wardens, alongside orchestrating her drug empire from behind bars. She also faced several attempts on her life by rival gangs and former associates. Griselda displayed her influence and defiance and survived the prison system. Griselda was released and deported in 2004 after serving 18 years of her sentence. She returned to Colombia, where she lived in hiding under police protection. She also reconciled with her sons, who had gotten deported earlier. Griselda regained her freedom, but lost her power and wealth.
Notorious crime widow Judy Moran could die in prison after being found guilty of murdering her son-in-law.
Meet Judy Moran, a name that echoes through the pages of Australian crime history. She wasn't just any figure. She held the title of matriarch in the Melbourne infamous Moran criminal family. The family's dark legacy is tied to the Melbourne gangland killings, claiming the lives of more than 30 individuals from 1998 to 2010. Judy herself was convicted of her brother-in-law Desmond Moran's murder in 2009, earning her a 26-year prison sentence. So, how did Judy Moran ascend to become the crime queen of Melbourne? Born Judith Mary Ann Brimble in 1944 in Sydney, Judy's life took a dramatic turn when she tied the knot with Leslie John "Johnny" Cole at 19 in 1963. Johnny wasn't your average spouse. He was knee-deep in a life of crime, dabbling in armed robberies, drug trafficking, and even murder. He was a part of the notorious Painters and Dockers Union, a hotbed of corruption and violence. Despite the shady business, Judy and Johnny raised 2 sons, Mark and Jason, who lived lavish lives funded by Johnny's criminal exploits. Judy later claimed innocence, insisting she was unaware of Johnny's dark dealings and that she was a dedicated wife and mother. However, the plot took a tragic turn in 1982 when Johnny was shot dead in Sydney by a rival gang. At the age of 38, Judy found herself a widow, the lavish lifestyle now tinged with the harsh realities of her husband's criminal world. Following Johnny's death, she and her sons moved to Melbourne, where she encountered Lewis Moran, a notable figure in the city's underworld. Lewis, like Johnny, was a part of the Painters and Dockers Union and had ties with various criminal factions, including the Carlton Crew and the Williams Gang. Love blossomed between her and Lewis, leading them to tie the knot in 1985. Lewis formally adopted Mark and Jason, solidifying them as part of the Moran clan. As a couple, Lewis and her didn't shy away from the darker side of life. They ventured into drug trafficking, extortion, money laundering, and even murder, expanding their criminal influence. However, success came at a cost. Rival gangs eyed them as a threat, sparking a dangerous game of territorial conquest. In 2000, Mark Moran, Judy's eldest son, was shot dead outside his home in Ascot Vale by a hitman hired by Carl Williams, the leader of the Williams Gang. Mark, known for his involvement in drugs and his violent tendencies, had clashed with Williams over turf. The loss devastated Judy, fueling a determination to avenge her son. She also blamed Lewis for not protecting Mark, and their marriage became strained. In 2003, Jason Moran, her youngest son, was shot and killed in a van up in Essendon North by Carl Williams and his associate, Andrew Vinyamin. Jason, not exactly a saint, was into drugs and a murderer who had been involved in some of the gangland killings. Williams lured him into a meeting, only to ambush and off him right in front of his kids, who were in the backseat of the van. Jason's death hit her hard, sending her on a revenge mission. Her relationship with Lewis became even more estranged, and she moved out of their home. In 2004, Lewis Moran was also gunned down in a bar in Brunswick by Andrew Vinyamin and another hitman hired by Carl Williams. Lewis was a drug lord and a kingpin in the Melbourne underworld and had an ongoing beef with Williams. He was also under investigation by the police for several crimes, including the murder of Graham Kinneberg, a senior member of the Carlton Crew. Things took an unexpected turn in 2019. Desmond Moran, Judy's brother-in-law, was shot dead in a cafe in Ascotvale by Jeffrey Armour and Michael Farrugia, two hitmen hired by Judy and her friend, Susan Kane. Desmond was Lewis's brother and a former accountant for the Moran family. He inherited some of the assets of the Moran family after Lewis's death and had been in a dispute with Judy over money and property. Judy and Susan plotted to kill Desmond and enlisted Armour and Farrugia to carry out the hit. Judy also drove the getaway car and was caught on CCTV near the crime scene. To top it all off, when police searched Judy's home, they allegedly discovered a hidden safe containing 3 handguns, 2 stolen Victorian license plates, a wig, and clothing that matched the description of the shooters given by witnesses. Judy and Susan were arrested and charged with Desmond's murder, along with Armour and Farrugia. Judy denied any involvement in the murder and claimed that she was innocent. However, the evidence against her was overwhelming, and she was found guilty and sentenced to 26 years in prison with a minimum of 21 years before parole. Sandra Avila Beltran is a Mexican drug lord who was named the Queen of the Pacific by the media. She was a major figure in the trade between Colombia and Mexico, and she had connections with some of the most powerful drug cartels in the world. She was arrested and extradited to the United States, where she pleaded guilty to the charges laid against her. How did Sandra Avila Beltran become the Queen of the Pacific?
Pero no es nomás con el narcotráfico, hay mucha corrupción en cualquier ámbito social.
However, drug trafficking is one of the most lucrative and dangerous businesses in the country, and it has attracted many people who seek wealth and power. Sandra Avila Beltran was born in 1960 in Baja California, Mexico. She came from a family with a long history of involvement in the Mexican drug trade. Her uncle, Miguel Ángel Felix Gallardo, was the godfather of the Mexican drug world. He founded the Guadalajara cartel in the 1980s and controlled most of the drug trafficking in Mexico. Her family also has ties to Rafael Caro Quintero, a former leader of the Guadalajara cartel who was arrested and extradited to the United States in 1989. Sandra grew up surrounded by wealth and power and learned the ropes of the drug business very early. She later claimed that she was proud of her family and inherited their intelligence and charisma. She is said to have had affairs with many drug lords during her lifetime, including Joaquin El Chapo Guzman, the leader of the Sinaloa cartel. Sandra married her first husband, Carlos Alberto Alvarez, in 1978 when she was 18. Carlos was a former police commander who became a drug trafficker and worked for the Guadalajara cartel. Sandra and Carlos had a son, Emiliano, and lived a luxurious lifestyle funded by Carlos's criminal activities. However, in 1985, Carlos was killed by a rival gang in Tijuana, leaving Sandra a widow and a single mother. Sandra was devastated by Carlos's death and decided to take over his drug business and avenge him. After Carlos's death, Sandra moved to Guadalajara with her son, where she met Javier Torres Felix, another former police commander who became a drug trafficker and a top lieutenant of the Sinaloa cartel. Javier and Sandra became romantically involved and married in 1988. Javier adopted Emiliano, and they became part of the Torres family. In 2001, Sandra and Javier met Juan Diego Espinosa Ramirez, also known as the Tiger, a significant figure in the Colombian Norte de Valle cartel. The Tiger and Sandra became lovers and formed a partnership to smuggle cocaine from Colombia to Mexico and then to the United States. They supplied cocaine from the Colombian cartels such as the Cali cartel and the Norte de Valle cartel to the Mexican cartels such as the Sinaloa cartel and the Tijuana cartel. They also smuggled heroin, marijuana, and methamphetamine across the border to the United States. They earned millions of dollars from their illicit trade and lived a luxurious lifestyle with expensive cars, houses, jewelry, and clothes. They also bribed and corrupted many officials, politicians, judges, and police officers to protect their businesses and avoid arrest. Sandra was admired and feared by many in the drug world and was known for her beauty, elegance, and charisma. She was also ruthless and cunning and did not hesitate to eliminate anyone who betrayed or threatened her. Despite her high-profile lifestyle, Beltran had long avoided leaving any evidence for police to find. However, when her teenage son got kidnapped for a $5 million ransom in 2002, she unexpectedly contacted authorities for assistance. She eventually got her son back, but not before raising red flags that prompted an investigation. She was charged as the mastermind behind the 2002 airport shootout, which resulted in the deaths of 3 federal agents and the seizure of 9 tons of cocaine. She also got charged with money laundering, organized crime, and drug trafficking. She spent 5 years in a Mexican prison, where she enjoyed many privileges such as cell phones, laptops, TVs, and visits from her lovers. She was also the subject of a popular song by Los Tucanes de Tijuana, a Mexican band which praised her as a beautiful and brave woman. In 2012, she was extradited to the United States, facing similar charges. She pleaded guilty to being an accessory after the fact in the 2001 kidnapping case of a Colombian drug lord and received a 70-month sentence. She was released in 2013 after serving 12 months in a U.S. prison and deported back to Mexico. She was then rearrested by the Mexican authorities on money laundering charges on August 20, 2013, and sentenced to 5 more years in prison and a fine. She was finally released from the Mexican prison in 2015 after a judge ruled that she had no pending charges in Mexico. And that's it for this video. If you want to see more crazy courtroom moments, check out this video and don't forget to subscribe.